Do you want to sit with Brother Thomas's? Okay, well, I'll
You just try to ignore me and the way you lecture.
No, I was saving myself.
That's so far away.
You're keeping the good humour in the hopes that I don't feel that you
I can't afford to be sad for the next hour. No.
get it wrong.
You got it wrong.
Yeah.
It's a bit louder.
I'm not trying.
I think so, yeah.
You're even better. You're right.
Nice to see you.
Hello everybody, just testing to see, is that microphone working?
No.
No, I'll have to shout. Give me 1 minute and we'll just see if we can make this work.
Give it a whack.
That's working.
Well, hopefully you can all hear me now. Is that a bit better? Excellent. Well, hello. Hello and welcome to so many people. It is fantastic to see you all here, and what an awesome turnout to celebrate the life of Paul Francis Gray, aka PFG, maybe even Paulie Wally to some of the Durham Crescent crew. It's just a real joy to have you all here to support our family as we remember him and share some hopefully entertaining memories about Paul. So Paul was born on 22nd of September 1939 in Wellington, and he died here in Thames on the 22nd of June 2025. And that was actually Matariki weekend, And so we felt it was quite a fitting time for him to pass away, as Matariki is a time to acknowledge the dead and release their spirits to become stars. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Kezia, and I'm one of Paul's 3 daughters. So there's myself, Tasha, or Tasha, depending on which era of your life you've met her, and Sam. And you'll be hearing from both of them today, along with many other speakers. So firstly, we just want to thank Peter Jones for playing everyone in on the bagpipes, if you heard him on the way in. I'm sure Dad would have loved that, so thanks Pete for that, and you'll also be hearing from him again a little bit later on. So, warm welcome to you all, those of you who are here in person. A warm welcome to those of you who are on the live feed, which we know there will be people on the live feed from all around the country. So looking around the room, I can see so many familiar faces, and I've even met some people that I've never met who are here to celebrate Dad. So there are people from Mangawhai, up there, and there's people from Motueka, people from Auckland, Tauranga, all over the place. So thank you so much for coming to be with us today. We do want to acknowledge those who are not here today in person, and Sam will elaborate a bit more on that when she speaks. And we do want to acknowledge and remember Tony Berryman, who was Dad's wife, who is no longer with us, but we want to acknowledge her today as well. So the plan for today, there's going to be a series of speakers. Who knows how long it will go on for, but I think estimate on the long side. And so if you need to get up and use the bathrooms, they're that way. If you want to just quietly get up and get yourself another drink, you're welcome to do that. So, you know, we will be raising a glass to Dad at the end of the talks and proceedings today, so feel free to keep yourselves topped up. Then we'll be having some afternoon tea from 2:30. Before we kick off with our first speaker today, our families would like to thank all of you who have supported Dad over the years, and there have been many of you who have made Dad's life a better place, and at difficult stages of his life people have really stepped up. So thank you for all the big and the small things that you did that had an impact on Dad's life. Right, so, I've forgotten one piece of housekeeping that will really help Paula on the bar. She's a one-woman band, so please take your glass back to the bar. That's your one important job that you need to remember. Right, so if Natalie is nearby, I'd like to introduce our first person speaking today, and that is Dad's younger sister, Natalie Gray, who is here to represent Dad's parents and immediate family, and she'll be reflecting on, I guess, their early life and anything else she wishes. So up you come, Natalie.
Thank you. I've never used a microphone before, so. Well, it's really a great honour to be here, because we've always been so very fond of Paul in our family. He's, in fact, probably oh, well, can you hear me all right? Yes. Because I'm not used to this. What
I
should
know
I
a little
do?
bit how these work, like that.
Oh,
That's
okay,
it. Yeah,
okay.
just keep it like
I
a telescope.
I won't remember. But as Tasha said, I'm here representing Paul's siblings and Mum and Dad, and remembering and sharing some of the recollections of Paul's early life. So I won't claim to know much after that, but we'll give it a good go. So my brother John and my sister Anne have sent me their recollections, and I'll try and remember as best I can. But you know, it's not my fault if I don't. I'm pretty ancient myself, so.
No, you're not, but I'm going to hold this for you, Mama.
Oh, okay.
No, just think of me as a stand, because if the people at
Can
home...
you hear me without?
It's the people at home, Mama.
The people at home.
No, I'll hold it for you, it's all right.
Okay then. So I am here to represent them, but I don't guarantee to remember exactly what they said. John is older than Paul, so he's got the best memory of all. He is 2 years older than Paul, and Anne is 2 years younger. And I was just a little one, so I won't have the memories that they had. Now, John and Paul were born in Eastbourne. Kezia mentioned Wellington, but Eastbourne was our beginnings, and we always loved Eastbourne. It was part of our, and those of us who used to visit, like Josie, will remember that it was part of our whole ethos. We loved Eastbourne, we loved the wild seas, and we loved particularly going round, walking round the coast and the rocks. And Paul was one of the ones that made the most of it. He just loved fishing, and he climbed up on those rocks and he fished away, and even late at night he'd be out there fishing, and the family were worried at home as it got darker and darker. But eventually the bike would be heard parking itself, and he would creep in with a little fish. And he'd sense the disappointment on our faces, but then retreated and came back with a slightly bigger snapper. And on it went. And he teased us until he brought in the big ones. So we were fed so well from the fish now, because we actually went to Eastbourne virtually every year, and lots of Sunday visits as well. And my kids will remember that. And Helen's kids, and Helen and Keith's kids. Always every Sunday, Dad would be wanting to go round the coast and walk around to see the old rocks where Paul was fishing. And it was great for us, but it was just a bit too expensive for poor Dad, who was a working man. He was a public servant, but so Dad sent lots of letters to Walter Nash. Those elderly amongst us will know about Walter Nash. I think he was from Lower Hutt, but he was the finance minister and the prime minister. So Dad thought, I'll be able to get some money out of him. And of course the banks wouldn't lend to someone like Dad. So he managed to get a state services loan, which he was credited Walter Nash with. And we managed to find a little house worth $3,000 in a new settlement called Ipuni. And it was basically just rural land when we went there. Well, I wasn't born, of course, but Paul was only 2. John says, no, it was actually a great place to grow up because there were fields everywhere. And John and Paul always used to tell me, oh, you don't know what it's like. When you went to Ipuni school, it was just a school. But when we went there, there were cows in the fields. And hopefully they didn't attack them. But anyway, they had a great time. They built forts, they raced their bikes, they had cricket pitches and whatever. They just did everything they wanted without constraint. And I think a lot of you will know, there's been referred to many times, that our generation, you just left home after breakfast and you just came home in the dark if you had a bit of lunch with you. So gradually the houses came, they started building these houses, and some mates arrived in amongst the fields, and things got even more exciting for John and Paul. They built even bigger forts, and I can remember one fort that we went down, it was right down underground, and I was just so impressed with this place. You could walk into it, and it's only later that I think, oh, I wonder what struts they used for the roof, because it didn't collapse on us, but that was the kind of thing they did. And there was a hill right at the end of our street that went up to the Ipuni Reservoir, and there were fire breaks up there. Fire breaks, yes, and tracks. And the kids, they were always building trolleys and sleds, and down they would come, racing down these tracks. And I think, well, they lived to tell the tale, but life was very exciting for them. And eventually, of course, by the 1950s, the family had grown enormously because after John and Paul, Anne was born, and then Helen, and then me, and then Gilbert in 1949. So by the 1950s, our little state house was full to the gills, and it was a very lively place. And of course, in those days, without any TV, you had to make the most of your own entertainment. And we used to play board games and cards, and we had one radio which we all gathered around when the comedy hour was on, like Life with Dexter, and I've forgotten the other names, the other, Portia Faces Life in the Morning for Helen and me. But it was, with the games, of course, and a big family, you end up with lots of arguments, and I think I was one of the biggest culprits. So Dad would be calling out, I need a bit of peace and quiet. But Paul was always the diplomat. He could charm anybody, as you know. Anybody who knows him knows Paul was a great charmer, and he always was. And so he managed always to calm Dad down. And I was very, very pleased to have Paul around when Mum and I crossed swords, because he could always calm Mum down as well. And so it was actually a really happy home. And I think one of the big factors of our life was music, because Mum absolutely was passionate about music. And she, of course, was a wonderful piano player. And the dulcet tones of her piano playing, Chopin mainly, was always ringing through our house. But she was also passionate about anyone who showed any talent to be encouraged. And we had a teacher next door, Mrs. Nees, and we all were, even those of us who didn't show talent like me, were all encouraged to enter competitions and exams and everything. So the music was going, according to the boys, from morning till night. I know I had to start practicing at 7 in the morning. And Paul, of course, was a great singer. He had a great singing voice, and always did, as anyone who's heard him lately would know. And he was encouraged to go into competitions and sing. And Anne was telling me that she was the accompanist. I can't remember what songs he actually entered the competitions for, but she said it was When the Swallows Come Home, and I thought it was The Fairies at the Bottom of the Garden, but maybe that was Helen. But he, of course, as he grew older, he wasn't too keen on doing those competitions. He loved singing, and he always sang all the time, but not the competitions and the exams and things. He was more interested in sport, and so he went, he was always playing cricket, football, not football, what is it? Rugby. Oh, you know how good I am. But he was, I think, as far as Mum was concerned, it was a bit of a chore, because she not only had John and Paul, every Saturday coming home, in the summer it was the cricket whites, in the winter it was the rugby gear, always caked in mud. And of course no washing machines in those days. She had a copper that she had to boil up, and she had a great big wooden paddle that she used to try and get the clothes clean. And then of course we had the wringer to try and get some of the water out, and up they would go on the line, and they had to be dry by the next Saturday. But of course, given the Wellington winters, sometimes it was a burden, and they had to be brought in and draped around the Otto, which was our fire stove. So eventually he continued on with his sport, and he actually, according to John, he was in the first 11 for cricket at Hutt Valley High, and he was actually in the first 15, according to my recollections. I had the idea that he stayed to third form 6 in order to get into the first 15. But, as I say, don't rely on my recollections too much. But the other passion that John and Paul took up was boxing and wrestling. And I used to take Paul on in wrestling quite often. And if you've seen a photo of him at that stage, when I was about 12, he was about 17, and he was quite a specimen. So my imagination that I managed to hold him down for the count of 10 was probably purely in my head. But he was a kind guy, and he would have led me to believe that I managed. But he and John used to set up boxing rings in the hall and really go at it. And we used to hear them as they, the cries. And Helen and I used to emulate them out in the living room when their boxing gloves were around. But our main thing was the refreshments. We used to have cut raw cabbage that we used as refreshments, and we thought we were really into it. But Paul and John took it seriously, and Paul, in spite of his crook arm, he managed to win the senior championship at high school in boxing, and he was only in the 5th form at that stage. So we were very proud of Paul. He was always larger than life and achieving great things. And of course, Mum in particular, he was the apple of Mum's eye, but Dad as well loved Paul. We all loved him so much. And of course, eventually, the era of rock and roll came on, and they were teenagers. So we're getting up now to 1950s, middle of 1950s. And according to John, Hutt Valley High was the place to be. Well, I didn't go there, so I can't vouch for that. But John said, after school, we all went to the Elb's Milk Bar and had a milkshake. And it was always, you meet up with all the other teenagers, and they had a great time. And of course, Friday night in the Hut was really singing. That was the only place where the shops were open. In the old days, there was nothing in the weekends or anything, so if you wanted to go shopping. But for them, it was cruising down High Street. When John told me that, I thought, cruising, that gave me the idea of Sunset Boulevard and a Chevrolet convertible, pink maybe. But no, I can remember the kind of jalopies that they had. John used to do them up. They were just black Fords or something, some old thing, and he would manage to get it going. But he said, no, we cruised down High Street, waving to our mates and calling out to the girls. Anyway, they had great fun. And there were always adventures to be had. And there was just constant, when the other crowds of Paul's friends came round, to me, as 6 years younger, it was all great excitement. And of course, they couldn't fit in our little house, so they would live in tents out the backyard. But we would be party to all the deliberations, and I remember they were setting up a cabaret at one stage, and they thought they'd make a lot of money. And they would hire the Apuni School Hall. And I can remember all the deliberations about what can we call it. It has to be slightly better than the Pines, which was the other cabaret in the Hut. But unfortunately, they didn't make money. So after a few Saturday nights, that was abandoned because they couldn't afford the rent on the Apuni School Hall. So it was an exciting time for us always. And there were never any dramas for his teenage years. He went through high school.
Really? Nobody's believing you, Mum.
Nobody's believing me, but I'll tell you the truth. The only drama really was Paul had a paper round, and he used to wrap up the papers and toss them into the homes with hoping to reach the porch and not the window. And he would be biking around with this paper round for many hours, and in the winter in all weathers, and he managed to catch pneumonia. And I can remember being quite frightened when I witnessed him coughing up blood. And that was the only thing that I ever think of as a drama. He never worried about his crook arm. That was caused by a tackle, a rugby tackle at intermediate. And according to Mum, it was they didn't when they were trying to plaster it and fix it up, they cut a nerve, but I don't know. That's, once again, might be a faulty recollection. However, he really got on well at school. He had a great time, and even though he mainly went there for the sport, the social events, and he didn't really take much worry about the schoolwork. In fact, his concern was not to do too much. He wanted to be efficient in his studies. And when he got exactly 200 for school cert, that was a triumph. Not 1 minute extra was wasted on studying, because he picked it perfectly, just like later he started picking the horses perfectly. So it was, you'd imagine the teachers would get fed up with him, but they never did, because of his wonderful charm. And even though he came late to school on occasion, he always had a good excuse. He used his quick wit to disarm the reprimands. And the story that John relates was that he would turn up at assembly late and be told off, and he would say, "Sorry, sir, it was such a struggle to get the toothpaste back in the tube." and everybody was disarmed by that sort of retort. And so it just seemed from a distance that it was just fun. And I can say that our family really appreciated having Paul. We really did. And I think if you ever see a picture of Paul when he was a toddler, you see the cheeky smile. And you could see it on the flyer that we had, that Kezia sent for this occasion. That cheeky smile stayed with Paul all through his life, and he took life on with great abandon.
You're good, Mum. We just doesn't want that used anymore.
Oh, that's good.
Continue.
I'll withdraw. No, yes, I'm getting a bit carried away. So I just want to say that's all, Paulie, and go well, and we appreciate you for all that you've done for us. Thanks.
I'm so sorry, I did not mean to cut Natalie off. I was trying to delicately take the microphone off you, so we were just going to use this one, apparently.
Oh,
so I was
great.
not trying to cut you short. I'm so sorry.
No, you didn't. I didn't. I'd come to the end. I was ready to say bye-bye, Paul.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Natalie.
And he didn't call out, "Boring!" off the stage. So I'm very pleased.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Natalie. Oh, we're using this now. It was a battery. There was a battery issue apparently, so hopefully that's working a bit better. Thank you so much, Auntie Natalie. We loved hearing about that, the early years of PFG. Honestly, I think they might have been some of the happiest years of Dad's life, and when he was losing his memory in the later years, he would often say to me, "How's the old man?" And he would ask, "What's happening to the gang at Durham Crescent?" So I think his mind went back to those places, and they were really happy places for him. Just before Sam comes up to speak, I just wanted to say something that I think is a fun grey family fact that links Tasha, Sam and I, and it relates to the fact that Dad was, of course, a literary man. Sam's name is actually Catherine, but I didn't know that until I was a teenager. And I think I saw it on a bank statement or something. So Sam is actually Catherine, based off of one of Dad's favourite literary loves, Catherine Mansfield. My first name is Kezia, which is a character from a short story written by Catherine Mansfield, and Tasha or Natasha is Tasha from War and Peace, I think. So Dad connects us with his love of literature through our names. Now I'm going to hand over to Sam to share some thoughts about PFG.
Thank you. Hi everyone. Does that sound all right? Okay. I'm Paul's eldest daughter. It's lovely to be here today, and he'll be absolutely blown away by seeing all of your faces here. He'll be absolutely rapt, wouldn't he? Yeah. first of all, I want to just think about a few people who really wanted to be here today. And there's lots of them, but a few in particular I just want to mention briefly. My mum and Paddy and my stepdad Ed would have loved to have been here today. Also, Tasha and Kezia's mum, Di, and her partner Clive would really have loved to be here today. And Cam's parents, Linda and Russell, were also, really keen. Uncle Judy and Uncle Judy. No. Uncle Johnny and Uncle Johnny and Auntie Judy couldn't be here today, but I know they're watching and we're saying hi. Sorry about getting you. And of course our auntie in Canada, Elizabeth Ann, or Ann as I know her. Yeah. And finally, but not least, my dear friend Linz, who's in Vietnam today, who came and visited Dad twice a week for years and years when he was sick. And I just want to say thanks. Yeah. It's a big, big deal. I know there's lots of other people who'd love to be here today too, but wow, so amazing. PFG, Paul, Dad, he was just different things to everybody. I don't think any of us will think of him in the same way. He was a chameleon, he was multiple personalities. He was just great.
Sometimes in the same sentence.
Yeah, yeah. And when I think about him, I always think about laughter and banter and wit and surprise statements and the unexpected. So we were, we were just never ever bored, were we? No, it was just, yeah. I remember one day, and Chris and I took him down to get a haircut. He wasn't that well, but this is very typical of him, and we went into the hair salon, and the very young hairdresser said, "Now, what kind of haircut would you like?" And he said, "Well, I'd like a pompous one, thanks." And I was like, oh God, this isn't going to go well. And she said to me, "I don't know what that means." And I said, "Well, I think he just wants a regular haircut." And she said, "So how much would you like off, sir?" And he said, 44 feet. I said, "No, just the regular amount." Thanks. And that was kind of classic. That was a bit of classic Dad right there. When I think about my happiest memories with him, I think about our boys camping down at the farm, and just him taking the kids on the back of the ute and trucking around, and fires at night, and talking all sorts of rubbish together and just having a great time. And he was incredibly supportive grandparent. They were just really cool things. The biggest thing when I think about Dad is I think what I'm grateful for is that he was never boring, he was never ordinary, he was funny, he had an inordinate sense of fairness and fair play, and he championed the underdog. He always believed, in looking out for people who didn't have as much as what he had, and he thought he had heaps, because he did. He was very smart as well. I'm not going to talk for a long time because I'm not that good at it, but I do want to just remember Dad. He was quite a prolific writer, as was mentioned before, and I think it's best for me to use his words rather than mine to say my goodbyes. And this is the last paragraph of a piece of his writing, I believe. Now, if I've got this wrong, tell me later. I have it down as 2010, but it could have been written much earlier, and these are Paul's words, I hope. And this is what he said. "So I reckon you should tell all the humans in your life that you love them while you've got the chance. We ain't here forever. The big wheel is shunting us along the line. Right, even as I tell you all tonight, all you members of the clan, all of you brothers and all of you sisters of the tree of man, that I have loved you once, and I will keep on loving you, after my fashion, that is, as best I can. Thank you.
Well done, Sammy. I think you are an excellent speaker. So well done. And loved those parting words that you shared of Dad's. Maybe. So next up, I'm going to actually ask some friends from Auckland, some long-term friends of Dad's, to come up. So Peter Ely, if you can make your way up to this podium up here with your wife Claudia, that would be awesome. So Dad was very lucky to have friends for life. And I can think of many friends for life. So what joy it gave Dad to have such long-term relationships with people like yourself. So we look forward to hearing your thoughts, Peter. I'll just pick something up off the floor there. And there's a step up here, Claudia. Yep. And you can stay there.
Yeah, it'd be easier if I stayed here properly.
Yep, you can stay there. Yep.
Thanks, Kate.
Just with there's a camera in front of you.
Oh, is
You wanna
there?
stand
Good
here?
Lord.
Yep. No, you're all good, Peter.
Well, thank you for the opportunity of acknowledging Paul, who was a lifelong friend, and I miss him very much. But he was always a jolly friend, always optimistic, especially when gambling. He was sometimes disappointed, but never showed it to excess. I first met Paul, must have been at the end of 66, 67, through John Vaught and Bob Kemp and other luminaries. And in those days, of course, we had 6 o'clock closing, and you know, it was pretty miserable weekends, really. So we used to play poker. Now, despite his optimism, he didn't always win. And I remember one particular Easter when nothing else was happening. It must have been Good Friday or something. And we started this school. It was, I think there was Paul, Paddy, McGregor, myself, and Barry Lett. And we played all day, all night, and I couldn't lose. And I ended up with all the money. And then I was loaning them money to lose more money, and I was still trying to lose, and I couldn't lose. So we finally gave it. I gave them all their money back, and we called it a day. But Paul was wanting to keep going. No, we can't do this. Anyway, he was that sort of person, and a huge, good sport. He had an enormous wit. He was a great man to be with all the time, I found. And when he first moved up into the Tauranga Valley, we'd come up and help him. And being a mechanic, I had to fix all the broken down cars and bikes and lawnmowers and God knows what else. But it was always good fun. And yeah, he's one of those people you can never forget. And he was so devoted to his friends, to all of his family, and he showed that in so many ways. And yeah, you can't forget his kindness and his care about other people as a school teacher, as a friend, as a husband, and also and as a father. He was a wonderful, wonderful man, and I shall miss him greatly. And luckily I went to see him just before he went away for 2 months, and I thought at the time I probably won't see him again, which left me with a very heavy heart. But I know that he, anyway, I hope he's happier now. Thank you, that was all I have to say, really.
Thank you so much for sharing those thoughts, Peter. That was lovely to hear what you had to say about Dad. Just reflecting on Dad's love of horse racing, I think Tasha, Sam and I probably spent more time at the TAB or the racetrack than a playground at certain stages of our childhood. So thanks, Dad. Although none of us took up gambling, so that was a bonus. Probably saw him lose too much money. So I'd like to invite someone very special up who's been another long-term friend of Dad's, and I'm looking at you, Don Barrier. If you're able to make your way up to the podium to share your thoughts. I think one of the significant sliding door moments in Dad's life was when, I don't know how it happened, but Dad ended up moving, maybe it was a short-term stay, up the Currawong Valley to stay with Don and Gail, was it over 45 years ago? And he never left. So thank you for changing the course of Dad's life and our lives too, Don. Are you okay to stand on here?
No, I'm right.
You all right? If you can stand up on there, you all right?
Yeah. Yeah, there, boy. That's what our greeting was always to each other. We got that from our mate Stan Dempsey. It was always, yeah, there, boy. But you can still draw a crowd, boy. Well, Paul and I got to know each other at Wellington Teachers College, about 1960. And we knocked around a bit for a while. And he, one time, middle of winter, cold, he wanted to take me up to the Alloway Dixon hut to meet his old mate Joe Gibbs. So he said. And he just won 50 quid on the horses. He bought an old matchless motorbike and never been ridden one before, no helmets, no warrant, no licence, nothing. And I'm sitting on the back, one with a pack, his pack, and 2 sleeping bags and a torch. And we head up, all the way up there. It was freezing. We didn't have proper gear. And our clothing was just sort of for going to school and university, going to college. And he pulled me the way. He'd been there before, and we started up the track, and we went on and on to finally we got to the snow line, and then up to above that to the hut. And by this time it's just probably nearly midnight. I could hear music and laughter coming from the hut, and I was quite surprised. And it turned out that the University Girls Tramping Club were there. Yeah. And he pretended surprised too. Yeah. We got no sleep that night and just made our way out. And a couple walking in said Snell and Halberg had just won gold medals at Rome. He had to go up and play rugby for high school old boys, and I had to go up and play for Teachers College. And we didn't do too well that day. Yeah, I think. And so many funny times with Paul. Another time, when this was about the last time I saw Paul for quite a while, really. He came up to Wanganui. It was the end of our first year teaching, PA year, and he came. We went up the Wanganui River with in my little old Austin 10, which is pretty clapped out, and we slept the night on the Peveriki landing, and went on to past Ratahi to the Ruatiti Valley, where there was rumoured to be lots of pigs. And had my old rifle there, and as we were going in, a truck driver said, be careful, there's a wild bull there, a big one, and he was crazy, and he was charging the quarry trucks, the big quarry trucks, and denting them. And he said the only chance of surviving if he comes at you is to whistle loud. And next morning we slept in this old hut, and slowly we would come out, and your car had got a puncture, and the next thing we look up and we hear this bellowing, and here's this big bull coming down, we were over a ton, coming down the road towards us pretty fast. And I could whistle then because I had teeth. And I gave a loud whistle, and the bull turned around and galloped off because he was scared of dogs. Yeah. And Paul had to hold up the back of the vehicle hold it up because I didn't have a jack to change the wheels. And we managed to change the wheel and take off again. But, there was those sort of things that happened. We didn't see Paul again for a long time, and then he came up to the valley with 2 little girls, and he stayed in this, what he called a square hotel. He was always giving things names. Peter Ely was Pipe Guts, and Graham McGregor was Grime, Brain Walker, big names like that, and so many names. And he stayed, they stayed in there, and he used to, had a candle, he used to read them stories at night. He slept on the workbench thing. It was only about 8 by 8 hut. Had a door and one window. And they'd come over in the morning for breakfast, and Gal was pleased to have 2 little girls for a while. And made them dresses for the fancy dress thing in Tarawa. And so they stayed for a while before they went back to Auckland. And then Paul was on his own for a while, and eventually Bob Kemp turned up. But Paul, he had to go back teaching then, and neither of us could make money off the land with our crazy schemes, really. And so we both went relieving at Thames High. He'd take one day, I'd take the other one, or we'd both have to go. And if he had to go, we'd hang up the tea towel, go to that old tea towel, hang it up on a big pole, because we'd moved into a house up on the ridge, and he could look up from the barn where we used to live and see there was a tea towel flapping, and he'd have to get his good clothes on, go to school, get on the bus and go to school, you know. And when you see our ex-pupils talking to them and everything, and Mr. Gray, he was a legend, they say. He was a legend, and he didn't go to school to teach or he went to school to entertain, and he really enjoyed it. And you could hear the students loved it when he was in the room, and you'd hear the noise and they're coming from about 3 classrooms there, and he'd get wild and try and quieten them down. Yeah. And then between doing the 3 jars for a start, planting them, he decided with a big row of beans, went for about 200 metres, a couple of those, and he sold far loads of beans to people up in the campgrounds, made a little bit that way. And one of his other marketing venture, I remember, was pumpkins, and he grew these beautiful big pumpkins. They were good, and he had the old Maury comical, he called the truck the comical, and put them on the back with a big load of these lovely pumpkins. Went into the supermarket, parked his ute right by the door, and started trying to sell pumpkins to the people going in. And when old Kieran, who was the vegetable manager, heard about it, he came out and told him to piss off. That's Paul had to do. And, but when he came to the valley, he brought up such light and laughter, and we all loved him. And Gail, me and the boys, and he'd come up at night in the middle of winter, and he'd press his face against, one of his favourite tricks, against the glass and make most horrendous faces. You know, and and then he'd come in and he'd have his old yellow raincoat on or something, and he'd sit by the fire and we'd have a few ports, and and he loved it. He loved. He's very kind too, you know. Well, to animals or people, and once there was an old sheep, you know, that got stranded on a little island in the river, and he and Jason, oldest son, he was very upset about it, wanted me to go and get it. And it was midwinter, and I said, "Oh, the old bitch can stay there till tomorrow, and she'll be able to walk off when the river's going down." And anyway, so he went up and got Paul, and he said to Paul, and so Paul, and there's Paul's chance to really impress Jason, and Paul stripped down to his underpants and went out to the river and rescued the sheep. Well, my name was Mud, but Paul's was, you know, yeah, that was it, yeah, and that, yeah. Anyway, there's just so many more stories I could talk about, but with our fish. Last one is we thought he got somewhere a whole lot of fish scraps that were given to us, and we piled them up with sawdust, and they made a terrible smell. And Mrs. Phyllis Lewis, the neighbour 200 metres away, she reckoned that she couldn't sunbathe on the deck anymore because she was being asphyxiated. So Gail told us, and we had to move it, and both of us were quite crook for a few days because we were getting actual pure ammonia coming up. It wasn't proper compost at all. was poisonous, you know. And we'd been putting it around the trees. And so we had to learn pretty quickly with all that stuff. And, oh no, there's so many other stories. You know, I'm going to read a poem. Paul. Okay. Oh, I should have brought my glasses. Never mind, I'll do it. Yeah. It's called Chutney Ladies. I better go by the light.
Here you are.
Oh, I got it. Always on borrowing Janet's glasses. It's better. Hey. Oh, that's better. Yeah. Yeah. Chutney Ladies. His feet were cold in bed, the tins in the kitchen empty, and not much, or anything really, of a woman left in the pantry. All the same, he was lying there thinking of women making chutney, the way they almost glide amongst the rich and saucy smells, forgetting for the while their wrinkles of lost love and what has come to pass of sadness. It is intoxicating so much they sing at work like princesses, unpinioned briefly from a prison past, fling open the window, peer out for any prince who might be riding by his donkey. And if none come, at least there still remains the bottling for tomorrow to be done, considering perhaps a jar for 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, once intimate, once drawn on the fragrant breeze of love's flung open casement. Yeah. Thanks. Yep.
Thank you so much, Don. I think we're all very happy that you got up and read some poetry. Your poetry recitals over the years have been a great source of joy to us all. And just thinking back to all those days on the farm that affected so many people in this room, I can certainly vouch for a large number of cock-ups that went on at all times and gave us a great sense of enjoyment. So thank you for all those awesome years on the farm, Don. Next up, I'd like to invite another very good friend of Dad's from teacher training, college, back when they were about 18, Jill Ward, if you want to come up. Jill would like to, I think, read something she has written, a poem, if I'm not mistaken. So come on up, Jill.
You're not mistaken.
I'm just going to step up there.
Yeah, me, the little girl from the convent boarding school. And they were all there. It was terrible. I was terrified of them. They'll find out about me. Because I've been taught by nuns and I'm a virgin. I looked at what the other girls did and tried to be sort of like them. I'll just tell you one quick thing about Paul Gray. One day we were sitting having a cup of coffee up here and he saw some women at a table over there, 4 of them. One of them might be here. And he went over to speak to them. And when I wandered over, and she said, "Oh, I've just been telling these others that you were the most romantic man in Thames." And he looked rather I wanted to fall down. But anyway, then we would get out and he's walking along and he's saying, "I'm the sexiest man in Thames." I said, no, you're the most romantic man in Thames. But later he says, "I'm the best lover in Thames." I said, no. But I was thinking, here I am with the most romantic, the best love, the best lover, the most sexy, and we're going to the TAB to spend his money. But I learned a lot from the TAB as well. So I hope you like that story. I wanted it to be funny because Paul liked funny, and so. But I felt for a lot of those photos I took, and I got sad when I saw them. But anyway, here's something that actually happened. One day, Paul said to me, he was always saying this, wasn't he? That he was going to die. And he said, "Will you speak at my funeral?" And I said, "No, I'll write you a poem." So here's the poem, Paul. What to say at the funeral. You came in healthy and happy from chopping trees, then random words. Will you speak at my funeral? Yes. I considered this, silent for a moment. Then I said, I'll write you a poem. So later I practiced what I would write, but it was harder than I thought, much harder. I wanted to say something different. Everyone would say how nice you were, how loyal to your friends, how much you loved your family, how you loved words, how you knew poetry and songs off by heart, that you were funny, loved the land, etc., etc. I remember things about you, and everyone here knows things about you. We are clutching our own stories, remembering. But I can see you laughing and saying, well, some of those stories might be risky for publication. Okay, Paul. So one I had, we all loved Paul, but also we had respect for Paul. And respect is very important. So thank you for letting me be here and do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joel, and Dad certainly would have loved that, and you really were a great friend to Dad, and I know the look on his face when I would deliver him a letter from you in those later years when Dad was in the Dooms, not the Booms, the Dooms, and you would send letters to my house for him and I'd arrive for a visit and we'd have a great time reading your letters, which meant a lot to him. Right, we're on the downhill slide, people. I think we've got 3 or 4 more people coming up to the lectern, and then proceedings will be over. The next person I wanted to ask to come up is another long-term friend of Dad's, Peter Jones. Wherever Peter is. Mango? Mango. That's what Dad would call Peter Jones. We all know him as Jonesy. Come on up, Jonesy.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. Well, we entered the valley, or came into the valley about 1981, and we were dairy farmers up there, and it was probably about the same time, that, or a year after, that Paul came up into the valley from Auckland, and I'd never met anyone like Paul. He was a consummate entertainer. He was always funny, and he treated us, the Jones family, like family, and we got to know all his children and his friends from Auckland, and they were a side of life that we'd never experienced before, and so he was just an entertainer. And of course, Don and Paul, it's always been Don and Paul, and the years that we had with Paul were our golden years up the valley. All our children grew up with the Barrier boys and the Lloyd girls and Devisiches, and so we were really lucky to be able to experience life with Paul's ups and downs and Don's ups and downs in their various schemes, all entertaining, and some coming off and some not. And so, you know, Paul will be missed, and we had lots of great parties with him, and I suppose the cricket games and indoor cricket games and the experiences people from Auckland we'll never forget. Now, Paul was a bit of a literary guy, and he gave us lots of poems, and I'd like to read out a poem, an ode to Paul Gray by Peter Jones. I'm not known for my literary skills, but Paul gave us heaps of laughter, and this is for you, Paul. Oh, Paul Francis Gray, poet and hellraiser true, a soul aflame in midnight's hue, friend of the wild, the lost, the free, a grower of dreams beneath the Feijoa tree. With ink-stained hands and laughter loud, you walked amongst the wayward crowd, the lost boy's kin in mischief sworn, dancing barefoot till the break of morn. Your words like fire, your heart abound, a vagabond with roots deep in the ground. For every seed you tucked in earth, a verse took wing, a second birth. A planter of poems, tender of vines, may your Feijoas sweeten the air like wine. And though the night may claim its toll, your spirit burns untamed whole. Raise ye a glass, ye wayward sons, to the bard who ran where the wild wind runs. Paul Francis Gray in law you stay, a hell of a poet gone, but never gone away. And so, yeah.
Thanks, Pete. Dad would have really enjoyed you reading that for him. I seem to recall there was an incident with the stink of fish in a ute that Dad was driving for quite a long time. It was sort of went on and on and on, and I think the culprit may have been that you had stuck some fish carcasses up on the inside of the ute and left it there as a nice present for Dad. So there was never a dull moment up the valley. So next coming to the podium are two very special people to me, my husband Cam and my son George, and they were also very special people to PFG. So I'd like to ask you both to come up and share your thoughts.
Thank you. Just like to thank you all for coming. Paul would be thrilled to see you all here, and as are we. And this is Georgie.
Hi.
And, man, a few words, but he's going to read out something from his granny or nan. She couldn't be here today, but she sent a note. And she asked us to read it out. So George has volunteered to do it. And off you go, son.
Alright. Kia ora whānau and friends. I'm sad not to be with you all today to celebrate Paul's life. Samantha, Tasha and Kezia. Your dad was a very charismatic man with a clever wit and a wonderful sense of humour. His aim in life as a young man was to write the great New Zealand novel, and he spent many hours banging away on his extremely ancient typewriter. In later years, I think he just wanted the big win on the horses, a challenge he put many hours of hard practice into, and no doubt many dollars in much red wine. But he achieved so much more than either of those things. He fathered three lovely little girls, Sammy, Tasha, and Kezia, who are now very special young women who have their dad's wit and delightful sense of humour. I'm sorry you've lost your dad, girls. You have worked so hard to look after him over the past few years. He was exceptionally lucky to have had you caring for him. It has been very hard emotionally and physically for you caring for him, while also working hard and looking after your own families. And you all did an amazing job. Also, with the hard work of Cam and Chris, thank you guys. I'm sure you will always cherish the happy times you had with your dad over the years, living or camping at the farm. I also have lovely memories of the years where we lived in Mount Eden and the Hokianga. They were very special times. I know he was very proud of all three of you and loved you very much. Rest in peace, Paul.
Okay, a poet I am not, but my dad and I wanted to have a crack at it, so he okay, so PFG. Up the Kauaronga, where the river meets the hill, the poet lived amongst the bush, where time passed soft and still. A man of wit and wine and song.
First time I've seen this, so let's see if I can find out where we are. A man of wit and wine and song, with earth upon his hands, a hug for all his favourite trees, kaitiaki of the land. He adored the girls who called him dad, spending summers on the farm, and lent to them his love of words, his spirit and his charm. The lost boys' chainsaws crack the dawn, blue smoke wafting through the leaves, a box of wine, a laugh, a joke, and bullshit talked with glee. Now silence falls along the track between Fijoa trees, but still we hear his yodeling call like smoke upon the breeze. Oh, that was beautiful. That was really beautiful. Thank you, Cam. That was gorgeous, and thank you so much, George, for reading out that. So, probably the worst time to call these two up because they look like they're breaking down. It's Liv and Jess, who are Paul's granddaughters. You right?
Yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay, that was a beautiful poem, Cam. We're gonna read. Oh well, for those of you who don't know us, we're Liv and Jess. We are Tasha's daughters and Grandad Gray's granddaughters. And we're gonna read a poem that I think I just want to say a couple of memories. I think when I was growing up, when we weren't hanging out with Grandad Gray, his biggest presence in my life was when we were brushing our teeth. And Mum would always say, whenever we didn't want to brush our teeth, "Do you want to end up like Grandad Gray?" And we would very quickly grab our toothbrushes and brush our teeth. Yeah, I think we were just very lucky to grow up with such a granddad who was fun and full of love and always wanted to do things and hang out with us. And it didn't matter that we were, I don't know, tiny. He would always want to hang out with us, and we'd spend hours around bonfires and driving around in his utes and picking feijoas and walking down to the river. And yeah, we have many beautiful memories from the farm and with Grandad Gray. So I'm going to read the first part of the poem and Jess is going to read the second part. So this is the Rangatike River Song by Sam Hunt. A man can only find himself when lost. Such country this, where all men are lonely, plateau, hawk and river mist. Country where a man at last might lose himself. An end of talk, find that gaunt-faced other, man who stalks these ridges, plateau, river mist and hawk.
No longer keeping eye for crumbling edges, lovers or the weather, listening rather to the river. Hawk and high plateau, river mist below by Sam Hunt. We're very grateful to have had a granddad who appreciated life who approached life with such silliness and love. Thank you, Grandad Gray. We love you.
Well done, girls. We really are getting towards the end of the proceedings now, and I'd just like to get Grime McGregor's attention. Well, it's Graham, but obviously we all can call him Grime. Graham's going to play us a song. So he's just going to get his guitar out, so I'll just keep talking while he's doing that. Graham's also been yet another very long-term friend of Dad's. Yeah, and yet again another very loyal friend. I know Graham visited Dad many times over the last few years at the Dooms, a regular visitor, which was very much appreciated. And Tasha's just given me a reminder to say, don't forget you can go to the bar and top up your drinks. There will be a send-off to Dad at the end that will involve a raise of the glass, so feel free to jump up and do that if you want to get a top-up. Graham's a bit of a folk singing legend, so you're in for a treat. Graham, can I just ask you to come over here, Graham, just because of the live feed, if you're happy. Are you all right?
Yes, I think people will hear me all right. Paul was a very good friend to me. I met him in Barrett's Hotel in 1960. That was... Everybody else has humorous asides, but he was very good to my daughter Amanda, who grew up particularly with Tasha and Kesey. And just by chance in 1981, he came from Thames and I went from Auckland, and we ended up on the rugby field in Hamilton, right next to each other. So I
Anyway, this is a song with a bit of poetic license, and let's hope you can understand it. It's hasn't been sung so much these days because the technology's changed so much. Talk about your gamblers, tell you about Big Paul Gray and the money that he won at Ellerslie. Well, he walked up to the toe, pulled a roll from under his coat, put all his money on an old brown mare. Well, the name it was Sue Paul, was the slowest horse of all. When it came to mud and slush, she could make it fly. At the furlong, she was last, but every other horse she passed. And one gone away by about 3 lengths. Well, he went round the back of the tote, but the money under his coat. So he had to go and borrow a wheelbarrow. But ever since that day, no luck has come his way. Now he hasn't got a penny to his name. Ba-da-dee-da, dee-da, dee-dee-dum, ba-da-dee-da, dee-dee-dum, ba-da-dee-da, dee-da, dee-da, dee-da-dum, ba-da-dee-dee-dee, dee-dee-dee, dee-da-da-dee-dee. Well, talk about your gamblers, and I'll tell you about Big Paul Gray and the money that he hasn't got today.
And he'll be playing the harmonica behind that.
I was just going to say, thanks so much, Graham. Graham's music is probably the sort of soundtrack to our childhood. There would be Graham on guitar, often with a kazoo in his mouth, like that's what he's playing, and Dad on the harmonica. So that was definitely a soundtrack to our childhood. There is another very special person that's been a long-term friend of Dad's, who's another valley person from up the Kauranga Valley, who I'd just like to invite up to say a few words, and that's Strat Peters.
Couldn't let this opportunity pass, Keisha. Look, I've just written something down here, and I'll read it out because it's the only way I'm going to get it across in the right way. Bit shy of public stuff now. Anyway, hello everyone, and it's so. How you going? Pretty good. It is so. I'm privileged to have known Paul in our lives, and we'll read out some of my thoughts. Being a part of Paul's life for the past 30 years or so has been enjoyable and full of surprises. Every time you spoke to Paul, it began like a goon show spectacle, a cross between Spike Milligan and Harry Seacombe, with lots of Still, as things progressed, the conversation normalised with a sense of care and genuine warmth. The real Paul always emerged. He was great company, a quick wit, espousing the meaning of life, reading poetry, storytelling, harvesting fijoles, splitting firewood, and bush dwelling in his happy place in the Kauranga, a harmonica player and a singer of note. Our music evenings with McGregor, Don, and sometimes Rowley, and Paul's harmonicas and guitars were memorable, filled with happiness, with a glass of wine or two. He thought he was the boss of the de-leafing department in our olive grove, with much singing and hilarity, especially when Don, another friend of Paul's, and I called him the olive press secretary, was there, due to plenty. He called me Carpo, the Greek god for the provider of food. Probably because I cooked some meals while he was a rest home carer, 24/7 looking after Tony and always arriving home late. I didn't have the heart to tell him that Carpo was a goddess, not a god. But I'm sure he probably knew that too. Such was his cheekiness. He demanded a higher rank and insisted I call him Aristotle. This is fact. The fountain of all knowledge, the teacher. Although I can attest to his procrastination and literati and book writing to get his works published. Hence, when greeted by Paul, I adopted a couple of names. It was either the Greek or Carpo, depending on the occasion. He was so fond of his daughters, and the simple joy and anticipation of their impending visits was obvious to me. His face always lit up, and you girls have been you've been such a close family. It's just been wonderful to see you. In recent times, spending time with his grandson, George, I know, who lived nearby, was the best thing. I miss all of the above and his serious side as well, where he was so good at putting things in perspective. You will always live in my heart, Paul, a caring, witty, wise, sometimes crazy, close and dear friend. Quote, being crazy kept me from going insane, he used to say. Much love from Sam and I, and missing you lots.
Thank you so much, Strat, and I know Dad certainly enjoyed your friendship over the years, and also appreciated you turning up with these beautifully cooked Greek meals to feed the lost boys up at the farm. We're just now moving to the open mic section of the proceedings, and I know Dad's cousin Josie Snook has asked if she could get up and say a few words, but if anyone else would like to follow, you're very much welcome to.
Thank you. Lovely to see you all. There was a period when we all wrote letters around the cousins. There would be one from Paul occasionally, and Anne in Fort St James, and others who wrote, I think Keith and Helen and John and Natalie, all of them. And this was the last letter that Paul wrote to us when he was still well. It's not the whole letter, it's just the poem he included, which I always liked and for some reason kept. And I found it the other day in a drawer. It's called To a Friend in the Wilderness by A.R.D. Fairburn. Old friend, dear friend, someday when I have had my day and the world its way, when all that is left is the gathering in of ends and the foregathering of friends, on some autumn evening when the mullet leap in a sea of silver grey, then, oh then I will come again and stay as long as I may. Stay till the time for sleep, gaze at the rock that died before me, the sea that lives forever, of air and sunlight, frost and wave and cloud, and all the remembered agony and joy, fashion my shroud. It must have appealed to him, and as Jill said, he was a bit preoccupied by the end of life. But he ends this with love to all and sun-dried. He meant sundry. So I always enjoyed the sun-dried. Thank you, Kezia.
Well, thank you, Josie. Now, there's absolutely no pressure here, but it's just an opportunity if anyone else does want to get up and say a few words. So we've got Jackson Vott coming up, and then my cousin Martha would like to speak as well. So come on up.
It's not me coming up.
It's Honey. Oh, it's Honey coming up. Honey's coming up too. Do you need that guitar moved?
No, we're good.
If possible, do you want to be here or wherever you?
Yeah.
You're sorry.
Kia ora koutou. I'm going to introduce Hon first, Honey Vott, and our older brother, and I'm Jackson, or Jack, or Jackie, been known through a couple of names. But first I want to pass on, and we're here to represent the Vogt, Voit, whānau, and kia ora, Uncle Peter. Good to see you. But I'm first going to defer to the Kemps, because I know that Steph and Christian Dylan are really sad not to be here today, so they've asked me to pass on a message. So this is from the Kemp kids, Stephanie, Krishna and Dylan. Dad lived with Paul at the Kairanga Valley for many, many years. Dad was in his zone there, at his happiest perhaps, no doubt mostly due to his close friendship with Paul. They were a kind of double act, living in the barn, playing Scrabble, working hard and growing things, and hosting us in the school holidays. As kids and teenagers, we visited Dad and Paul often when Tasha and Kezia were there too, and it felt like we were in a family. We had special times there, swimming in the river, picking dinner in the garden, playing in the paddocks with Smokey the cat in tow. This is from Steph. Paul was like an uncle, a warm, funny one. He lightened the mood and cracked us all up. To this day, whenever it rains hard, I hear his voice saying, oh, geez, now I've got to do it. Oh, I've got to do an impression of Paul, Jesus. It is bursting down. Chris says, I remember him as a very special man, a funny man, such a character. Oh man, that is a word of our childhood. Oh, he's a character. And how he played the harmonica. And from Dylan, I remember Paul as always gold in my life. My time on the farm was real special. A lot of good times. What a great guy. From us all, huge love to Tasha and Kezia and Sam. Remember, he is always around you. And at the same time, no doubt having a beer with Dad and jousting on the Scrabble board in the sky. Bloody poets. Okay. I'll just add on to that we were the Auckland City kids who came down to the country and just, it was incredible, eh, Hon? Oh, you've suddenly gone quiet.
Yes.
Dragging your wheelchair to the river, but I think our memories of Paul are far deeper, and I'm just going to say that I've already checked this with Hon, that Hon uses 4 words for people: Mummy, Daddy, Bruce, his first teacher, and Paul. And Paul is it's funny, both me and Hon got, because we were like sick little kids, we got baptised. Our other siblings, Abigail and Paddy, didn't. So we had to get godparents, and my godparent is Paul, and he's my namesake. I share his name. And it's very weird saying Paul, because it was Uncle Paul, eh, Hon? It was always Uncle Paul, and I don't know how old I was. I could have been like 10 or 12 before actually saying, Dad, where's Paul in these photos of your brothers and sisters? So, yeah, that's what and I just want to, those times, McGregor, oh my gosh, those parties, you guys let us have a good time. Those Auckland parties, those school teachers. I'm a school teacher. But I don't have as much fun as you guys. Yeah, that just brought back the memories that are strongest for me personally, and I think, I don't know, for you, Hon, that Paul always had time for the kids at the parties. Like, we'd be kicking around, blowing up, what were those wine sacks things? Yeah, making tyres, having fun, and Paul would always find us and tell stories and put his voices on. And this is from Abigail. She's like, you've got to remember the trumpet joke. I'm like, what? And this is how she entertains her daughter, who's there in Boston at the moment. I'm not very strong, so I don't know if I can do this. No. To blow up So, yeah, Uncle Paul, what a funny and witty man. And I'm gonna try to wrap up with the Don Barriers, the John Volts, the Roland Volts. There's so many of these men and women who have stayed friends for like over 60 years. And what a beautiful group of literary, witty, funny and loving people and uncles and aunts to us all. So yeah, my love to you all, and thank you, Uncle Paul. Kia ora.
That was absolutely wonderful. Thanks, Jack and Honey, and certainly brought a lot of memories back for me. It's true, Dad could actually inflate his biceps by blowing them up. It was absolutely true. Jill, we've got Martha making her way up now.
Sorry, I'm just saying goodbye to you. I came up from Wellington this morning and I'm going back now. And I had to be here, but I don't want to miss my plane. And Mr. McGregor over there is taking me to Auckland. Yes.
Thank you so much for making it, Jill.
Such a privilege.
We've absolutely loved having you here. Thank you so much. Take care. And Martha is making her way up now, so I'll hand the mic over.
Hi everyone, my name's Martha. I am Paul's niece, his sister Helen's daughter. We grew up, my family, I've got 4 siblings, we grew up in Wellington, and we spent a lot of time in Epuni at Durham Crescent, along with my cousin Sonia and Eleanor. We were there every Sunday, and we also had other cousins in Upper Hutt, Caroline and Andrew, and we saw them quite a lot as well, and we just all grew up together. And of course every Christmas we were together, and that was great. But we had other family. We had family a long way away. Well, it felt like that to me, not leaving Wellington that often. We had family in Auckland, cosmopolitan Auckland, and then there was Uncle Paul, and he was just really different from any of us, We kind of went on the train and went to our government job, and we worked as teachers, or, we just kind of did ordinary stuff. And then there was Uncle Paul, and he was just a different person, and he lived a very different life, and he just seemed so cool and adventurous, and we just were all under his spell. I mean, yeah, it was incredible. And occasionally, every few years, he would come down and maybe with the girls as well and see us maybe often at Christmas every few years. And I remember one Christmas, he made a very generous offer to the cousins. And he said, we're all going to go and get ice creams. And this was a big deal for us. I mean, I grew up in my mum, Helen, she was very health conscious. I mean, every morning we had to have brewer's yeast in our milk and an egg every day. And we had to top that all off with a big spoonful of cod liver oil. So that was our landscape. And so when Uncle Paul offered us all ice creams, you know, I was just imagining it, us all trooping down to the dairy, getting those ice creams, maybe even a double scoop, we'd be able to choose our flavour. It was incredible. The trouble was, that visit passed and those ice creams did not materialise. And when we asked him about this, we said, Uncle Paul, the ice creams, he admitted it. He said, yes, he agreed, he had promised. And we couldn't do it that time, but he would give us an IOU. And so he got a piece of paper and he wrote out an IOU and he said, next time there'll be, you keep this IOU and bring it, give it to me next time I come. And so we did. And the next time he came, we presented him with the IOU. Well, you can see how this unfolded. I don't know how many times this happened, but he always seemed to evade actually having to produce the ice creams. And we didn't know quite how he lived his life. We sort of wondered, maybe he hasn't got enough money. I mean, we just didn't know. We didn't know. But the hope was always there. And actually, I kept one of these. And I've got it here. And I'm a minimalist, so this is stuck through. Here it is here. And it's written with Uncle Paul's typical spelling. So it's not quite as you would expect. This says, I'll read it out to you. New IOU from you know who, exclamation mark. Double ices for all at Xmas, signed Uncle Paul. And the signature. And then, on the front it says, to whom it may concern. Then at the bottom, throw all other IOUs away, by order.
Very good.
Well, I don't believe we ever got the ice creams. But wouldn't it have been far less interesting to have got the ice creams and not had the thrill of the chase, which we did for all those years. So, yeah, Uncle Paul was incredible, a great uncle to us all, and he'll be greatly missed.
That's hilarious. I love that story. Thanks so much for sharing that, Martha. So, does anyone else feel that they want to come up and say anything?
Dinny, settle in, people. It's Dinny Barrier.
Do you have to
No, you just speak, but you need to stand there because of the...
Yeah, I probably only got up here because my oldest brother last night said, don't get up. And don't worry, there's no poetry from me. It's just, yeah, Paul was like having another second father. And there's just so many funny stories, but I got a couple of little ones. One night, because he'd upgraded from the, he'd moved from the Square Hotel to the hay barn, and we were in the house up on the hill, and he'd wander up now and then to have a beer with the old man on pork by the fire. And one night he come up, and because he was a good chess player, you know what I mean? And he just loved playing chess, and the old man was bringing over his chess. But so and he loved Mum too, my mum, and Mum loved Paul's humour. So it was just great value when he come up. And so anyway, come up one night, itching for a game of chess, and so I don't know what we were all doing, us boys. He'd probably asked Jason and Reese, and then he started on me, and I'm like, well, you know, I do like my chest. And he goes, right, I'll bet you for $100. That was a lot of money. It was That was huge money back in the day, wasn't it? Back when you know what I mean? I was only about 8, I think. And I'm not sure if it was me or Paul. I think I might have got cheeky and said, $100 and you've got to take your queen off. No queen, because it's obviously your best bit, isn't it? But yeah, you're on. I reckon he had too many ports with the old man. But so we played this game of chess, right? And I still don't know. I've asked him many a time over the years, but you know, Paul, hard to get a straight answer out of him because I beat him. But yeah, but I reckon, I don't know. I reckon he let me beat him. And $100, you know, a lot of kids these days probably would have gone, right, need me money, you know, but I didn't even. It was just a game, and then waiting for the school bus to take us into town every now and then. Paul used to give us like 20 cents or 50 cents. I reckon he probably paid about $10, but we got But yeah, just a great fella. And another, just one more. I know we're all hungry and I want to go for a smoke. But one more, right? He made up, we had the POS gang, he made up this big iron eel gang, and he caught this, must have caught this huge eel in the hinaki and cut the head off it, stuck a stick in it, stuck it in the bank, because they still look alive because the eyes are open and the horns are there and it. And he told us POS gang about it. We're down there for hours. We had the best bait. We had fucking everything. We had the best bait. We're dangling all this stuff in front of it, just wouldn't move, nothing. I think it was 3 or 4 hours before someone got down there and poked it with a stick and then it floated up to the top. But yeah, what a good bastard.
I haven't heard that fish story before. That's hilarious. Right, anybody else feeling the need? No, so I think we've probably reached the end of the proceedings, except you want to do the haka. Daniel's going to do the haka.
Come on.
All right, who's going to do the haka?
Anyone want to do the haka for Paul? Come on.
Okay, I'll go stand by Kezia.
Rangia pakia nana I tiki mai whakawhiti te rā. Hi. Kamate, kamate, kora, kora. Kamate, kora, kora. O tēnei te tangata, huru, huru, nana I tiki mai whakawhiti te rā.
That was awesome. Thanks so much, guys. This is the last person who's going to take the podium today, so I'll be handing over for the final time to my sister Tasha, Natasha.
Right. So nice to see you all here today, and the first thing I would like to say is how much Dad would have loved to be here with you all. The second thing is I've learned that Kezia, Sam and I owe quite a bit of money and a lot of ice cream on behalf of Dad. Sam is actually in charge of all the finances, so anyone else, go see her. He did like to promise a lot in Dalters. Anyone got any debts in Dalters? Yeah, there'll be a lot of Dalter debts, including, I think, quite a large amount to us. Few birthday presents in Dalters over the years. Yeah, Dad was quite outrageous actually, and that's probably the other thing that I've really reflected on is Dad he really did think like nobody else. And that was probably before people didn't really realise, you know, there wasn't a word for that, which there is now, and he had no choice but to really be himself. And that wasn't always easy for those of us who were close to him. He also brought great joy at the same time, but he did have a side to him where he couldn't understand, I think, part of why he was the way he was. But I would say Dad was probably quite neurodiverse, now I think about it. But he celebrated that aspect, and he saw the joy in other people. He saw the joy in being different, and he drew that out of each of us and made each of us feel that we were okay as we really are. And I think that's probably the biggest gift that Dad gave me. Yeah. And I know the other gift that he gave us was to show us what friendship really is. And I was talking with someone the other day who knows a bit about this stuff, and he said that's so unusual in a man, to really, really grow those friendships and to bring that true connection. And I hadn't thought about it like that, but that really is the other thing that he brings us. And I think that's why Kezia, Sam and I turned out okay, despite a lot of what happened. And I think those are the gifts that we all take away with us. And that's how he's made us all better people. So yeah, I put a lot of these photos together. Tree hugger, true tree hugger. Many of us, I think, will have had conversations with him actually hugging a tree. And I work in the field of sustainability, and I can really genuinely say I come from that. I do tag on the gambling, the drinking, as well, to make him human, because he was human. He wasn't always fun to be around. He did have a challenging side. Alcohol was a challenge. He was great for a while in the night, and then you kind of wanted to scarf her off. The TOB became a place of friendship and support for him, which really surprised me. And I think Dad would have probably said we were all too nice about him today. And he would spend those times thinking about, this is a terrible way to finish, I'm really sorry. But actually, it's true, because he was full of flaws, and, he really was full of flaws. But that's what kind of makes him a special person, because he allowed us to have flaws and be okay with it. And that's what I take away from him. Yeah, it's kind of this unsaid. So I want to also draw on this amazing book written by one of my chosen uncles, Don Barrier. Forced on me a little bit, but I've grown to love him. So into friendship, and I hope we all take these qualities out into the world. Well, I know we all do, because that's why you're all here. So Dad wrote one of the foreword to Don's book, and this is what he wrote. I don't know how many of you know Dad's love of cask wine. It's a big one. We actually drink it, and we drink it out. I drink it out of a mug. People think I'm crazy, but I go, this is how you drink cask wine. And it turns out cask wine is the most sustainable way to drink wine. So he was ahead of his time. They make great rafts as well, don't they? Yeah, we had enough of those to make rafts. Well.
Very good.
So this is what he wrote. This is indeed the last of the cardboard chateau. Yet, with the passage of another 50 years, we, I'm assuming he's talking about you, Don, here, and co, we confidently expect to have traded up to superior accommodation with an infinitely better wine list. And he wrote this poem. Consider this, an errant patch of gorse upon your hill. Spare it an hour before you go in for the kill. Admire its flower. PFG. So go well, everybody. I like to think of Dad down in the Feijoas weeding just one more tree And the river was a massive part of his life and a great and joyous part of it. So that's where I like to think of him being. So this is the end of the proceedings for the day. And I think we're going to have our new patriarch, Chris, come up. Chris is Paul's son-in-law, to do a toast for Dad.
Thanks, Tash. As Paul would say, it's about bloody time. But first, I just want to acknowledge his amazing daughters for the care and attention and love and the devotion that they put into Paul when the decline started. I've never seen anything like it, girls. It was absolutely amazing. So actually, cheers to you first. Really classic. And also particularly to Keys and Cam, who live close by to Paul, you poor things. And so they were first responders to the various emergencies that used to occur up the valley. Yeah, bless you. So anyway, to Paul Gray, we are all going to miss you. You're an amazing, different, as Martha pointed out, man, and we will genuinely all miss you. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers. Thank you. And the caterers will be delighted to know it's time for afternoon tea. Thanks, everybody. Thanks.